Well, this week, the first batch of ticket sales are going to open for next year's FIFA World Cup. That event, it's estimated, will bring 350,000 visitors to Vancouver. That's according to estimates that come from the province. That is leading to new calls for the city to temporarily ease its short-term rental restrictions. Here to talk about that is Alex Howell, a policy lead for Airbnb Canada. Good morning to you, Alex.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being with us. What would you like to see happen with the restrictions on short-term rentals during FIFA?
So first off, this is a very exciting opportunity for Vancouver. So many people are working really hard to deliver a world-class experience at FIFA for locals and for visitors. On Airbnb alone, we're anticipating about 32,000 visitors from FIFA will stay with Airbnb hosts in the city. We want to make sure that the city has enough places for people to stay. That's incredibly critical, but making sure that those places are available at price points that meet a variety of budgets. We're encouraging the city and the province to take steps to allow more hosts to participate and to make it easier for those hosts to participate in home sharing during FIFA to help deal with the accommodation shortage that we know Vancouver's facing.
And if people who normally don't, participate in Airbnb want to rent out their homes for a short time, what sort of fees are they looking at paying?
So it is quite substantial, particularly in Vancouver. The fees are a little bit more than $1,000, and that allows you to host for a full year. We're talking to the city about reducing that for FIFA specifically. We're talking about, maybe it's $100, something like that, because we're not talking about people who are going to be hosting necessarily throughout the year. This is something that they're specifically going to look at doing for FIFA. So we want to make sure that they're able to make their places available if they're going out of town. Maybe they're less interested in being there for the games, so that somebody can have an affordable place to stay. And in order for that to work, those fees, particularly at the Vancouver level, do need to be reduced pretty substantially, given we're really only talking about a couple of weeks of hosting.
Sure, but I suppose, given what hotel rates are going to be and the demand that there's going to be in the city, you could probably make up that $1,000 annual fee pretty quickly.
Well, you're also taking a chance on, are you going to be full for those full 2 weeks? Is it going to depend on who's in town when, what games are happening, and who's playing? So it's not necessarily that folks will be blocked straight for 2 weeks. And on top of that, there is a fairness aspect to this. People who are going to host throughout the year, it makes sense perhaps that they pay a little bit more. But if you're really talking about helping the city to meet its accommodation needs, these are hosts that are kind of stepping up, going to do something that's new and different for them. We want to incentivize them to take part in this and to help the city provide that accommodation that people are going to need.
And so for people who have never done this before and they decide, hey, there's going to be a lot of demand here and I'm not that interested in soccer, I'm going to get out of town for a week or a couple of weeks. What does it take for them to convert their places into something that could be Airbnb accommodation?
It really depends on what they are able to offer, what works for them. Some people may just make a room available, which is a very affordable choice for somebody who's coming into the city for the games. Some people may be leaving town altogether and want to make their whole space available, but they're going to need to make sure that they've got everything, cleaned, set up, ready to go. From a regulatory perspective, they're also going to need to do the work required to get licensed, both at the city and with the province. So remember, BC has a very complicated system that requires registration with the provincial authority as well, and also with Vancouver. So they're going to need to start that process early. And we are having conversations with both levels of government, particularly the city, about how to reduce some of those barriers and make it a little bit easier for people to get registered, to make it easier for the city to grant those licenses in that short period of time.
We received a statement this morning from the City of Vancouver, and it says this: the City of Vancouver is not currently considering changes to its short-term rental regulations for the duration of the FIFA World Cup 26 in Vancouver. The city is also unable to override the province's short-term rental regulations, which limits the extent to which it can ease its current policy. What do you make of that response? It makes it sound as though there isn't much the city can do.
There's certainly things that both orders of government are able to do. So from the Vancouver side, reducing that fee, making it a little bit easier for people to decide to host just for that period of time would be one step that they could take. They could also look at perhaps allowing for accessory dwelling units, people who maybe have a finished basement apartment that currently, they use for just family and friends. They're not able, according to the rules, to currently rent out that space in Vancouver. Maybe Vancouver looks at making some of those spaces available as well. From the provincial side, they would need to make it easier for people to host. The process to get registered at the provincial level is very complicated. It takes some time, and we would need a signal from the province that they're willing to work with us on that.
In April, Premier David Eby said that he'd be open to loosening up some of the restrictions once the rental market had stabilized in BC. Have you heard anything back from the province on that?
Not specifically from the province. We have heard from some municipalities who, based on their vacancy rates, will be able to, exempt themselves from some of the rules probably as early as next year. And they're talking about whether or not that makes sense for them. In particular, some of those communities that do have a lot of tourism and that a lot of their economy is driven by that tourism economy. They're looking to perhaps loosen up the rules locally, but it will depend on what's right for each individual city and what's available to them in terms of exemptions.
And do you have estimates on what difference it could make to the short-term rental numbers if the city did decide to ease restrictions?
So there's only about 13,000 hotel rooms available in the city. So it's clear that the existing accommodation options aren't going to meet the need of as many of 350,000 visitors coming from the World Cup. We anticipate at the moment about 32,000 visitors for FIFA could stay at Airbnbs. That's still not going to quite make up that difference. We're trying to figure out exactly how to quantify that now and figure out how much supply we'd need to onboard. But it would depend on, when people are going to be away, whether or not they're able to make their place available for that full 2 weeks or, a little bit of time on the shoulders, whether they're only going to be out of town for a couple of days. The idea with short-term rentals and allowing for big events to be exempt from some of the rules is that it adds that flexibility in. So during those real surge times right around a game, being able to build in a little bit more supply for people to stay at.
And what's at stake for your company if the city or the province doesn't change the regulations?
We're committed to supporting FIFA in Toronto and in Vancouver. We are a global partner of the games. We're very excited for them. We're continuing to work with both the city of Toronto and the city of Vancouver on ways that we can support them. I'll actually be in Vancouver over the course of the next couple of days to chat with some folks there. So we're definitely still supportive of the games, but we want to avoid what we saw with, say, the Taylor Swift concert, where people were looking at $1,500 for a hotel room. We don't think that's a good story and a good narrative for the city, and we want to help them avoid it. I think it's very important that people have affordable places to stay.
Well, yeah, sure. And obviously, Airbnb stands to profit if they do change those regulations.
Our hosts would certainly anticipate getting a surge of stays during that time. We calculated based on full occupancy. Hosts may make as much as $4,000 over the course of that 2 or 3 weeks. And that's really important for them at a time where, they're still renting out that primary residence. Maybe it pays for them to take a family vacation while FIFA's happening. And so, the vast majority of the benefit is going to be to Vancouverites who are living there and deciding to share their space during that time.
So I guess they could afford that annual fee then if they needed to.
It would take a big chunk out of their, that's a quarter of what they could potentially earn at the highest end. So that's a pretty good chunk of your operating expenses there.
And what does Airbnb stand to earn if the city changes the regulations?
I don't have that, at hand. That's not really something that we can calculate because we don't know how many hosts would make it available. We don't know how easy the city would make it. We don't know if the province is going to make things easy. All of those aspects would really feed into to how
But just by
valuable.
way of example, you talked about a host earning $4,000. If a host were to earn $4,000, what's Airbnb's cut of that?
I don't have that right at hand. I'm sorry, I don't know it off the top of my head.
Hmm. Alex, thank you for the time this morning. We appreciate it.
Happy to. Have a great day.
Thank you. That's Alex Howell, policy lead with Airbnb Canada. I'd love to hear from you on this. What do you think about loosening up the short term rental restrictions in order to accommodate the hundreds of thousands of people expected for the World Cup games next year?